For her 9th birthday, Andy received a castle. Not a fancy one with turrets and crenellations, but a fortress. It might not have looked like anything special to most people, but it contained a bed she didn't have to share with her younger sister, plus a built-in bookcase to fill with her favorite books. The room gave her the high ground in her house, and she imagined it would be the perfect place for dreams, tucked into the highest point of the vaulted ceiling. What a fool her 9-year-old self had been. 21 years later, as Andy drove up to the curb outside her new rental and parked, she realized her expectations of that long-ago bedroom and this place had both been too high. A sinking sensation filled her stomach and rested like a stone-hard lump as she took stock. When would she learn to be realistic? She couldn't take her eyes off her new accommodations. What a dump. Still, what could she expect from somewhere that hadn't requested references and had been available on 14 hours' notice? Who knows how long it had stood vacant. The compact house hadn't appeared so run down in the pictures online, just cozy. Its faded, mottled brown exterior, sagging front porch, and overgrown lawn were a stark contrast to the pristine white house next door. The neighbor's residence had a wraparound porch and a well-maintained lawn, which looked professionally cared for, every blade of emerald grass even. A round turret rose from the rear, giving it more of a castle look, which must be what triggered her memory. Tulips and daffodils blossomed in orderly rows. Unlike her new yard, which just sprouted scraggly weeds, not even dandelions, which would at least be cheerful. Still, anywhere was better than staying at her old apartment in a fancy high-rise where Dylan would soon return. She just needed to adjust her attitude and view things as they were instead of turning everything into a story. The Seattle area was expensive, so this place was all Andy could afford to rent at short notice on a public school teacher's salary. With a deep breath, she spoke to herself. Come on, living alone and starting over isn't so awful. You did it before, you can do it again. She glanced at the indented band on her left hand where, until an hour ago, her wedding ring used to live. Her barren finger seemed naked, but she couldn't stay married to Dylan after the last beating. His anger had always been terrible. The first time he'd hit her, he'd apologized. But last night, he'd pummeled her again. She wished she'd left after the first time, and she wasn't staying for a third occurrence. Her whole life, she'd promised herself she wouldn't put up with physical violence. Not from anyone, no matter the circumstances. Yet here she was, doing damage control. Her mind had replayed the latest incident 1,000 times since it had happened yesterday. She'd forgiven him once, but never again. If she hadn't moved out, she wouldn't have respected herself. Tears welled up at the memory, but she blinked them away. Dylan wasn't worth it. 2 fingers returned to her tender cheekbone with the livid eggplant bruise. That's where the first blow had landed. Andy bit her lip and stopped. If she wasn't careful, she'd give herself cold sores, a side effect of stress and chapped lips, a deadly combo. The tight sensation in her chest persisted. This morning, she hadn't spoken to Dylan, who'd returned after she'd gone to sleep. She hadn't told him she was moving out. Instead, she'd gotten up, pretending to get ready for work, and waited for him to leave before packing. She glanced at her phone. In 8 hours, he would arrive home. When he didn't find her there, he would call, demanding to know where she was. They'd had another political event on the schedule tomorrow, and he'd have to go solo, which would irk him. Like the first time he'd hit her, Dylan would be contrite today and buy flowers. He would expect forgiveness. She took a deep breath and held it for several seconds before exhaling. Such a move wouldn't sway her, and she didn't intend to divulge her new address. Let him fume. She was across town and safe. She swallowed. What if he showed up at her school? She couldn't leave her job. She owed it to her students to stay. Plus, she'd never get a reference for another teaching job if she abandoned this one.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.